a terrifying encounter. I was 13, living in a small, affluent village in southern France, an area known for being extremely safe. Every afternoon, I'd take the bus to my little sister's elementary school to pick her up. She was 9 at the time. One day, as we walked home from school, I noticed an old woman following us. At first, I thought nothing of it, assuming she was just a neighbor, but as we turned onto our street, she quickened her pace. That's when I saw a knife clutched in her hand. My heart racing, I grabbed my sister's hand, and we started walking faster. The woman kept pace with us, her eyes fixed on us with an unnerving intensity. I tried to stay calm, thinking of a plan to get us to safety. As we approached our house, I could feel my sister's hand trembling in mine. I pushed open the gate and rushed us inside, locking the door behind us. We were shaken but safe. The old woman stood outside, staring at our house with a menacing glare. My parents called the police, and they arrived quickly, taking the woman away. It was later revealed that she had a history of mental health issues and had been living on the streets. The incident still disturbs me to this day, a stark reminder that even in the safest of places, danger can lurk. My sister and I were lucky to have escaped unharmed, and the experience taught me to always be aware of my surroundings.
Uber mix-up at the cruise port. I recently went on a cruise with my family, expecting to encounter some entitled people along the way. But surprisingly, that didn't happen until after we disembarked. My wife ordered an Uber, and we were thrilled to see it arrive just 2 minutes later. As my wife went to confirm with the driver, an irate man came running up, claiming he had been waiting 30 minutes and that this was his Uber. My wife showed him her phone, which displayed the car's make and color, license plate, and the driver's name. However, the man refused to show his phone and insisted it was his ride. He then went to talk to the driver, who revealed that the man had indeed booked the Uber initially, but canceled it when the driver said he was running a few minutes behind. The man tried to rebook, but canceled again when the driver gave the same estimate. Unbeknownst to the man, the driver had accepted our request after leaving the restroom, arriving at our location in under 2 minutes. The man's frustration was palpable, but it was clear that he had made the mistake. In the end, we got into the Uber and left, feeling a bit sorry for the man, but also relieved that the situation didn't escalate further. The man's actions were a reminder that sometimes, patience and understanding can go a long way in avoiding unnecessary conflicts. We made it to our destination without any further issues, and the Uber driver even apologized for the confusion, explaining that these kinds of mix-ups can happen when multiple requests are made in a short span. We appreciated his honesty and professionalism, and the rest of our journey was smooth sailing.
And I was supposed to just be okay with it. I was shocked when instead of congratulations on my engagement, I got a lecture about how I pressured my fiancé and didn't need to get married for health insurance. My in-laws made it clear they didn't think I deserved a ring. When I was in labor, I didn't get any words of encouragement or support, just criticism about how long it was taking and why my husband was doing everything. They even asked why they couldn't all be in the room during the birth. After the baby was born, I didn't get any offers to help, just a comment about how I wasn't a good housekeeper. When we bought a house, they told me it was too much responsibility and I shouldn't be on the deed. Even when my mom passed away, they didn't offer any condolences, just a criticism of the obituary. It was like they expected me to just accept their hurtful behavior and never stand up for myself. But I realized I didn't have to live like that, and I finally found the strength to set boundaries and prioritize my own well-being. I'm still dealing with the aftermath, but I'm determined to create a healthier dynamic with my in-laws. It's been a long and difficult journey, but I'm learning to speak up and assert myself in a way that's respectful yet firm. I'm taking care of myself and my family, and that's all that matters.
Colleague insisted on asterisks. I worked in a marketing department in the mid-2000s. My colleague Paul was dictating a PowerPoint presentation to me, pacing behind his desk. He wanted an asterisk in front of every bullet point. I'm a bit of a pedant and didn't get along with Paul. We had argued the day before about the pronunciation of HH, with him refusing to concede despite me showing him the dictionary. So I was in the mood to argue again. I said as passively as possible, "You mean asterisk, not asterisk." Paul stopped and stared at me, insisting it was an ASTERIX, a little star. I corrected him, saying it was an asterisk, but he wouldn't budge. He looked at our other colleague, John, for support, asking if it was indeed asterisk. John just shrugged silently and kept his head down, clearly not wanting to get involved. Paul and I went back and forth, with me trying to explain the difference. Finally, I decided to give in and put the so-called asterisks in the presentation. As I typed, I thought to myself, "You got it, buddy." I added the asterisks, knowing that Paul would never notice the difference. The presentation was finished, and Paul was happy with the result. I had won the battle but lost the war, as our working relationship remained strained. To this day, I still chuckle when I think about the asterisk debacle, and how I managed to keep a straight face throughout the ordeal. Paul never did learn the difference, but I learned to pick my battles. Bumble BFF disaster. I still get nervous thinking about the time I met a stranger from Bumble BFF. I was 24, new to the city, and desperate to meet people. My job wasn't exactly a social hub, so I turned to Bumble BFF to expand my circle. The first meetup was a huge success, which emboldened me to try again. That's when I met Amber, a 22-year-old who seemed friendly and outgoing online. We chatted for a bit before deciding to grab coffee. As soon as we met in person, I felt a weird vibe. She was quiet and reserved, which was the opposite of her online personality. I tried to brush it off and make conversation, but it was clear we had nothing in common. Things took a turn for the worse when she started asking me invasive questions about my personal life. I politely tried to change the subject, but she kept prying. I realized I was in an uncomfortable situation and needed to get out of there. I made an excuse to leave, and as I was walking away, I felt a mix of relief and anxiety. It was a shocking reminder that you can't always trust people you meet online. I learned a valuable lesson that day. Be cautious when meeting strangers, no matter how friendly they seem. I never heard from Amber again, and I was grateful for that. Now I'm more careful about who I meet and make sure to prioritize my safety. It's been over a year since the incident, and I'm just glad it didn't end worse. I've been able to reflect on the experience and realize that it was a blessing in disguise, teaching me to be more vigilant and cautious in the future.
The unsettling classmate. I met him in high school, and at first, our conversation seemed harmless. We talked for a couple of weeks, but I quickly realized something felt off about him. His face was disfigured, similar to the burned skin of Freddy Krueger, which made me uncomfortable. I tried to pull back and treat him like a casual friend instead, but he didn't accept that. He would often show up at my locker or sit next to me at lunch, trying to engage me in conversation. I felt a growing sense of unease, like I was being pulled into his world. As time went on, his behavior became more intense, and I started to avoid him altogether. But he just wouldn't take the hint. One day, he confronted me about why I was being so distant, and I had to be blunt with him. I told him that I valued my other friendships and didn't have time for him. He got angry, but eventually he backed off. After that, he left me alone, and I was able to breathe a sigh of relief. Looking back, I realized that being kind to someone who doesn't respect boundaries can be a recipe for disaster. I'm just glad I set boundaries before things escalated further. Now, I'm more cautious about who I let into my life, and I've learned that it's okay to prioritize my own needs.
Mother implied my wife faked cancer and never apologized. 2 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with cancer, and I immediately told my mom, who was the first to know. We decided to move our family to our home country for treatment, which meant leaving behind my parents. But shortly after sharing the news, my mom started acting strangely, implying that we were using the cancer as an excuse to leave, and even suggesting that the cancer wasn't real. She pressured me to share more information about my wife's condition and to tell my siblings, which made me uncomfortable. To make matters worse, she reportedly badmouthed us to our family and friends behind our backs. Thankfully, my wife went into remission, but when we moved back, my mom refused to apologize or acknowledge her hurtful behavior. In fact, she still hasn't apologized to this day. As a result, I limited our contact about 1.5 years ago, and we've only seen each other once since then. My kids also have limited contact with her. Recently, she sent an email asking where I stand and saying she misses me and the kids. I'm torn because I don't take pleasure in having limited contact with my mom, especially since it affects the kids. But without any apology or acknowledgement of her wrongdoing, I'm not sure how I can trust her. I'm considering giving her an ultimatum. Either she apologizes and takes responsibility, or we can't have a relationship. I'm not sure if this is the best approach, so any advice would be welcome. My wife's cancer diagnosis was a difficult time for our family, and my mom's behavior made it even harder. I want to move forward, but I need to know that my mom is willing to make amends and respect our boundaries. I'm hoping that by setting clear expectations, we can work towards healing and rebuilding our relationship. For now, I'm waiting to see if my mom will take the first step towards making things right.
Terrifying home invasion. I'm still shaken, wondering if I imagined the whole thing, but I'm not sure what to do. I'm an 18-year-old female, living at home with my parents and my 2-year-old daughter. With winter break from college, I've been picking up extra shifts at work, thanks to my mom being off work and willing to watch my daughter. For the past 2 or 3 days, I've been having trouble sleeping until 12 or 1 am because my daughter has been waking up at night, and I need to get up early for my 8-hour shift. It's currently 10:42 am. I've already texted my boyfriend, but I don't want to wake up my parents over nothing. I've been trying to stay calm, but my mind is racing. I've been on edge, and the fact that I'm running on fumes isn't helping. I just want to know if I'm going crazy or if someone was really in my house. I'm trying to replay the events in my head, but everything is a blur. I just hope I'm overreacting, but the fear is still lingering. I'm not sure what to do next or who to turn to. I just want to feel safe in my own home again.
My fling from 5 years ago is mad at me. I'm a 28-year-old woman who has been with my current boyfriend John for the past 3 years. He's been my rock and I hope to marry him one day. 5 years ago, I had a brief fling with a former college mate who shares the same name as my current boyfriend. We went on 2 dates, but he never called me after that, so I assumed it didn't work out. I'm actually glad he didn't try to contact me after those 2 dates. I recently ran into him at a wedding and we caught up for a bit. He asked if I was seeing someone, and I told him I was dating a guy with the same name as his. For some reason, he was highly offended by this, and said if I wanted to end up with a John, he was right there. I reminded him that he never called me back after our dates, and he said he was waiting for me to call him, but I never did. I could have called him, but honestly, I wasn't feeling it. He made a few unwarranted comments over text after that, and to protect my peace, I blocked him. I'm just glad I'm with my current John now, and I'm happy to have blocked the other John from my life. My current boyfriend and I are still going strong, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for us. I'm just disappointed that my fling from 5 years ago couldn't respect my boundaries and move on from our brief time together. I'm focusing on my current relationship, and I'm not going to let someone from my past bring me down. I'm happy to have closed that chapter of my life, and I'm looking forward to a positive and drama-free year.
Am I the jerk for refusing to buy outlet covers for my sister-in-law? My sister-in-law is coming to stay with us, along with her husband and babies, and she's been making a list of demands. First, she asked me to buy all this expensive organic food for them, which I did. But then she had the nerve to ask me to buy outlet covers for our home, claiming we'd eventually need them when we have kids of our own. The thing is, my husband and I just got married, and we're not planning on having kids anytime soon. And what if we can't even have kids? It feels like she's taking advantage of us. Whenever they come to visit, they never contribute to anything or bring a host gift, unlike what we do when we visit friends and family. They even borrow our cars and we feed them, so it feels like we're being taken for granted. I'm torn between being a good host and feeling like I'm being walked all over. Should I buy the outlet covers and ask her to pay me back, or is it reasonable to expect her to respect our boundaries? My sister-in-law seems to think that this is just what family does for each other, but I'm not so sure. I feel like we're already going out of our way to accommodate them, and it's getting to the point where it's feeling really frustrating. I'm not sure what to do, but I know I need to figure it out before they arrive.
Mother-in-law's surprise visit. My husband and I were thrown into chaos when his mother, who owns the house we live in, showed up at our doorstep with less than 12 hours notice. She brought her older son, daughter-in-law, and 2 grandkids, and they stayed for 6 grueling days in our guest bedroom. The visit was a nightmare, with dirty diapers scattered around the house, a kitchen overflowing with dirty dishes, and a mess that seemed to rival a Viking raid. My husband now refers to them as the Vikings, and we could only laugh at the absurdity of it all. What made it worse was that I had the most important meeting of my career just a couple of days after her visit, but she never bothered to ask about our lives or careers. The final straw was when she threw a tantrum because my husband wouldn't cancel our plans to take her to the airport. She faked crying, saying she'd stop being a burden to us after my husband put her in an Uber. I managed to keep a straight face, but it was clear that her behavior was unacceptable. This visit was the last straw, and we've decided to move out of the house as soon as possible. We're relieved to be leaving the drama behind and starting fresh. The visit may have been hell, but it was also a wake-up call for us to take control of our lives and our living situation. We're looking forward to a more peaceful and civilized life, free from the chaos that his mother and her family bring.
Entitled sister demands new gift. I have a sister who lives across the country, and we trade names for Christmas to save money since we're a big family. I got her family a game she's been wanting for months, along with some expansion packs, going a bit over the spending limit because I was feeling generous. I shipped it to her house, but apparently her kids got too excited and she couldn't make them wait. They opened the gift early and now she's demanding a new one for our family party. I think she's just fishing for another gift, being her usual entitled self. My husband and I were discussing this, and he jokingly suggested getting them an advent calendar to teach them patience. I'm not worried about the kids being disappointed at the party. I can just remind them of the game we already got them. The more I think about it, the more I believe my sister was the impatient one who wanted to open the gift, and then see if she could get another present from me. She did say thank you, but now she's expecting more. I feel no need to accommodate her entitled behavior. The kids are usually well-behaved around more mature people who hold them accountable, so I'm not too concerned about them. My sister's behavior, on the other hand, is just disappointing. I've thought about it and I'm not going to get them another gift. I've already gone above the spending limit, and I don't think it's necessary. I'm just going to remind the kids of the game we got them, and that will be it. I'm not going to let my sister's entitlement dictate how I handle this situation.
Underwear mishap at Target. I was browsing the underwear section at Target a couple months ago when a sweet old lady approached me, holding up some briefs. She asked, "Excuse me, do you think these will fit me?" I was taken aback but tried to be helpful, giving her and the briefs a once-over before responding, "I think so." However, my response seemed to trigger something, and she suddenly became embarrassed, asking, "You don't work here?" I was then forced to clarify that I was just a random stranger, not a Target employee, and definitely not qualified to be giving underwear advice. The old lady laughed it off as she walked away, and I couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of the situation. It was a lighthearted and amusing encounter, and I'm just glad we both could laugh about it. The whole experience has stuck with me, and I still find myself smiling when I think about it. I've even caught myself wondering what would have happened if I had been a Target sales associate, and how that conversation might have gone. In the end, it was just a funny misunderstanding, and a reminder to always be prepared for the unexpected when out in public. The old lady's laughter and ability to laugh at herself has stayed with me, and I appreciate the brief, but entertaining, interaction we had.
The mysterious case of being mistaken for an employee. I've been dealing with a bizarre phenomenon for years, and I'm at my wit's end. No matter where I go, whether it's a retail store, mall, Target, or even a hotel lobby, people constantly mistake me for an employee. I'm never dressed like the staff, often wearing casual clothes, and sometimes I even have my AirPods in or a coffee in hand. One time, I left a dressing room to get a different size, and didn't put my shoes back on, and a lady chased me down while I was barefoot to ask an employee question. This has happened in various locations, and I'm starting to feel like I'm going crazy. Recently, I was in an elevator at the airport, carrying a backpack and a roller bag, and everyone assumed I was the elevator attendant. One lady even tried to tip me. I'm a 36-year-old, 5'5", androgynous-looking white lesbian with short dark hair. I've noticed that this only started happening after I cut my hair short, and I'm desperate to understand why. I've had long hair in the past, and I never experienced this issue. I'm hoping someone can offer some insight or theory as to why people keep mistaking me for an employee. I'd love to hear any thoughts or explanations, as this has been driving me absolutely bonkers for years. I just want to know why this keeps happening to me, and if there's anything I can do to avoid it in the future. I'm tired of being mistaken for someone I'm not, and I'm eager to find a solution to this strange problem.
A tragic and avoidable loss. I'm posting this as a final goodbye to this community, a place I used to frequent but found to be detrimental to my mental health. The title of this post may seem cold and insensitive, but it's honest, and that's where I'm at in my life. A woman was driving down a busy 2-lane interstate, late for a doctor's appointment in the next town. Several people witnessed her driving erratically, cutting people off in her hurry to get there on time. She lost control of her car, left the road, and flipped it. She was unresponsive from that point on and died on the way to the hospital. My son was too young to understand the permanence of her death, but it's been devastating for my husband. For me, it's been a mixed bag. I'm not sad she's gone, as she often tried to manipulate and undermine my relationship with her son. However, the circumstances of her death were unexpected and violent, leaving me with a sense of sadness. Her passing hasn't solved all our problems, but it has made a positive difference in our lives. We're still grappling with the aftermath, and I'm trying to come to terms with the fact that her death, although tragic, has brought some semblance of peace to our family. It's a complicated feeling, but it's the truth. I'm trying to focus on the positive and move forward, but it's not easy. The days ahead will be challenging, but I'm hoping that with time, we'll be able to heal and find a sense of normalcy again.
Confrontation in aisle 3. I work in healthcare and often stop for groceries on my way home from a long day of saving lives. One evening, as I was browsing through the shelves, a man approached me, seemingly out of nowhere. He asked where the bourbon was, and I politely informed him that, sorry buddy, this is Florida and supermarkets can't sell bourbon. I also found it amusing that he thought I worked at the grocery store, given that I was wearing my hospital scrubs. I mean, what grocery store has its employees walking around in medical attire? The man looked taken aback, and I could tell he was a bit embarrassed. I just chuckled and told him he might want to try the liquor store down the street. He nodded and walked away, leaving me to wonder what had just happened. I shook my head and continued shopping, still trying to process the encounter. As I was checking out, I couldn't help but think about how people can be so clueless sometimes. I paid for my groceries and headed home, feeling a bit amused by the whole experience. Now, whenever I wear my scrubs to the grocery store, I half expect someone to ask me where the bourbon is. It's become a funny little anecdote that I like to share with my colleagues. And as for the man, I hope he found his bourbon and learned a valuable lesson about not assuming someone's profession based on their attire. I'm just glad I could help him out, even if it was just by pointing him in the right direction.
Understanding baby fever. I'm almost 30 and I know the definition of baby fever, but I still don't have an urge to get pregnant. I'm curious to know how people know if they have it. For me, it's not about the desire for motherhood, but more about the sudden interest in having a child. I've seen friends and family members experience it, where they suddenly start noticing babies everywhere and feeling a strong desire to start a family. They talk about feeling a pang in their heart when they see a cute baby, or feeling left out when their friends are all having kids. I've never felt that way, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm just not wired that way. I've always been focused on my career and personal goals, and the thought of having a baby hasn't really crossed my mind. But at the same time, I'm getting older, and I know that my window for having a child is slowly closing. I'm starting to feel the pressure from society, and my loved ones to settle down and start a family. I'm not sure if I'm ready for that, and I'm trying to figure out if I'm just not feeling the baby fever, or if I'm just not ready for that stage of my life. I'd love to hear from people who have experienced baby fever, and how they knew it was real for them. Was it a sudden feeling or a gradual one? Did you always know you wanted to be a mother, or was it something that developed over time? I'm trying to understand what it feels like, and if it's something that I'll experience in the future. As I navigate this stage of my life, I'm trying to stay open-minded and not put too much pressure on myself. I know that having a child is a big decision, and I want to make sure that I'm ready for it, both emotionally and financially. For now, I'm just taking things one day at a time, and trying to focus on my own personal growth and development. I'm hoping that by hearing from others, I'll gain a better understanding of what baby fever feels like, and if it's something that I'll experience in the future.
One of the scariest moments in my life. I'm almost 30 and I've been carrying around 2 terrifying experiences that I wish I could forget, but they'll probably haunt me forever. I've tried to suppress the details, but it's time to confront them head on. As I reflect on my life, I realize that these moments have left an indelible mark on me. I'm not one to seek sympathy, but I feel it's time to share my story, to unburden myself of the weight I've been carrying. The first experience was particularly jarring, and even thinking about it now sends shivers down my spine. I've tried to move on to focus on the present, but the memories linger, a constant reminder of the fear I felt. It's taken me years to work up the courage to share this, and I'm not sure what the future holds, but I know I need to take this step. I'm hoping that by sharing my story, I can begin to heal and move forward. The road to recovery won't be easy, but I'm ready to face my fears and take back control of my life. I'm not the same person I was when these experiences happened, and I'm still trying to come to terms with what I've been through. It's a process, and it's not going to be easy, but I'm determined to find a way to overcome my past and build a better future for myself. You can just pay for me. I'm still shaking my head laughing after what just happened at the automatic car wash. I took my older Honda, which I affectionately call my baby, to get the salt and dirt off. As I pulled up in line, I noticed a lady in a brand new Cadillac SUV ahead of me. She pulled into the bay and I started the process of buying my car wash for after her. But just as I was about to select my service, I noticed the touchless sprayer was not working. At first I thought the machine was broken. No big deal, I could just use the other bay. I canceled the transaction and started to back up. That's when the lady honked and got out of her car, dressed to the nines and decked out in jewelry. She told me to just pay for her and she'd give me cash. I agreed, thinking it was just as easy. I told her to give me the cash and I'd put the wash she wanted in, and then she could pay me after it was done. The lady handed over the cash and I paid for her car wash. As we waited for the wash to finish, I couldn't help but think about how strange the encounter was. But I was also relieved that it had worked out so smoothly.
After the wash was done, the lady got back in her car and drove off, and I was left wondering what had just happened. I got my car washed, and it looked great, and I was glad I had decided to splurge on the car wash. The whole experience was definitely a strange one, but it had ended up working out okay in the end. I was still a bit shaken by the whole thing, but I was also grateful that nothing worse had happened. I got back in my car and drove home, still thinking about the strange lady and our encounter at the car wash.
Shocking email from mother-in-law. I'm still reeling from what I just saw, an email from my mother-in-law to my husband that has left me shaken. For years she's bullied me, and things escalated when I finally told her how hurt I was. She said my wedding was the worst day of her life, insulted my parents, and told my husband he never wanted to marry me. She even demanded I return the necklace she gave me when I got engaged, which I did. I've been trying to distance myself from her and my father-in-law, who's also been awful to me. Recently she's been pushing to meet for coffee, but I've refused unless she acknowledges her past behavior. I've blocked her on email and WhatsApp due to her abusive messages. To make matters worse, I've just had a miscarriage after a 2-year IVF journey, leaving me emotionally exhausted. The email she sent my husband was a plea for him to convince me to meet with her, claiming she's changed and wants to move forward. But what really got me was when she said I'm being stubborn and unforgiving, and that I'm the one who's been hurting her. I feel like she's trying to manipulate my husband into taking her side, and it's making me question our relationship. I'm not sure what to do or how to process all of this. I just know I need to protect myself and my marriage from her toxic behavior. I've been trying to focus on my recovery and healing, but this email has brought up all sorts of emotions. I'm just hoping my husband will stand by me and support me in setting boundaries with his mother. As I'm writing this, I'm still trying to come to terms with everything that's happened, and I'm not sure what the future holds, but I know I need to prioritize my own well-being and my relationship with my husband.
I was told my parents' home isn't mine anymore. I recently visited India after 2 years, and chose to stay with my parents to protect my peace from my in-laws, who had previously made my life miserable with their constant passive-aggressive comments during their 4-month stay with us abroad. My mother-in-law made snide remarks about my appearance, jewelry, cooking, and even my personality, all while pretending to be concerned for my well-being. I was compared to other women, and made to feel like I was not good enough. I stayed quiet and smiled, but it took a toll on my mental health. This time, I decided to keep my distance and let my husband handle his parents. However, things took a turn when my husband recently bought a condo, and I also bought a condo for my parents in the same city a few years ago. They mostly live in their old house, but occasionally stay at the new one. The issue arose when I was told that my parents' home isn't mine anymore, which was shocking and unbelievable. I felt a surge of emotions, from anger to sadness, and I knew I had to respond. I realized that I had been trying to please everyone else and neglecting my own needs. I decided to stand up for myself and assert my boundaries. I told my husband that I needed some space and time to process my emotions. I also made it clear that I would not engage in any conversation that would compromise my mental health. It was a difficult conversation, but it was necessary. I learned that I need to prioritize my own well-being and not let others dictate my emotions. I am still dealing with the aftermath, but I am determined to take care of myself and my relationships. I am currently focusing on rebuilding my relationship with my parents and creating a healthier dynamic with my in-laws. It's not going to be easy, but I am ready to take on the challenge and come out stronger.
I quit smoking, but my buddy kept offering me cigarettes. I quit smoking about 30 years ago, and my best friend John was clearly jealous that I could quit, and he couldn't. Every time he'd light up, he'd offer me a cigarette with a smug smile, saying want one. This happened repeatedly, and I'd always decline. One day, we were standing on his balcony when he pulled out his cigarettes and offered me one again. This time, I decided to take a different approach. I said yes, took a cigarette, and as he handed me his lighter, I started tearing the cigarette into tiny pieces and sprinkling them off the balcony. John was annoyed, saying, "What the hell? I thought you said you wanted to smoke." I replied, "I did, this is just what I do with them now." I told him to keep offering if he wanted to. John's expression changed from smug to shocked, and he never offered me a cigarette again. It was a small victory for me, and I was proud of myself for staying committed to my decision. I realized that John's behavior was not only annoying, but also a test of my willpower. By standing firm, I proved to myself that I was stronger than my addiction. From that day on, our friendship was a little different, but I was happy to have overcome the challenge. I'm still grateful for that moment of clarity, and I'm proud to say that I've been smoke-free for over 30 years.
My 7-year-old brother's New Year's antics. I was talking to my 7-year-old brother, and I told him that New Year's is tomorrow. His reaction was priceless. He started screaming at the top of his lungs, HALLENEWIAR, HALLEHNEWIA. He proceeded to do this for 2 minutes straight. I was taken aback by his excitement. I tried to calm him down, but he just would not stop. He was too pumped up for the new year. I have to admit it was kind of infectious. His energy was palpable, and it got me excited for the new year too. As he continued to scream, I couldn't help but laugh at his antics. It was honestly the most adorable thing I've ever seen. After 2 minutes of non-stop screaming, he finally calmed down, exhausted from all the excitement. I asked him why he was so excited for the new year, and he told me it's because he gets to stay up late and watch the fireworks. I couldn't argue with that. Who doesn't love a good fireworks show? Now I'm looking forward to the new year, thanks to my little brother's enthusiasm. He's still talking about it, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be counting down the hours until midnight. I'm excited to see how the rest of the night goes. With my little brother by my side, it's bound to be an interesting and fun night. As the night approaches, I can feel the excitement building up. My brother's enthusiasm has gotten me pumped up for the new year. I'm glad I got to experience this moment with him. It's a memory I'll cherish for a long time.
Father-in-law asked me to fly home after surgery. I still can't believe what my father-in-law asked me to do after my surgery. A couple years ago, I dislocated a bone in my midfoot and needed immediate attention. The surgery was a success, but the recovery was going to be tough. I had to have the bone reset, the ligament replaced, and the bone screwed back in place. My mother-in-law came to take care of me for 2 weeks, which was a huge help since I have a special needs child and live 2 states away from our immediate family. However, my father-in-law had other plans. He doesn't know how to cook and is extremely picky, which is a problem because my husband's aunt, who lives with them and is suspected to be going senile, is a terrible cook. She has given my father-in-law foodborne illness before due to her substandard cooking practices. When my father-in-law found out my mother-in-law was coming to visit, he told her that he was going to ask me to fly back home with my child less than 24 hours after my surgery. This was not only unreasonable but also dangerous. As someone who just underwent surgery, I was at high risk of getting blood clots within the first 48 hours if I couldn't elevate my leg. With my foot swollen and in a surgical boot, I wouldn't have been able to take precautions like wearing compression socks. I was shocked and upset that he would even suggest such a thing, putting my health and my child's well-being at risk. Luckily, my mother-in-law was there to support me and help with my recovery. In the end, I was able to recover safely, and my father-in-law's request was denied. I'm just grateful that I had my mother-in-law's help and support during that difficult time. My relationship with my father-in-law has been strained since then, but I'm just focusing on my health and my family's well-being.
An unforgettable encounter with Matthew Lillard. I'm autistic and have a deep fascination with Matthew Lillard's work, particularly in FNAF, Scream, and Scooby-Doo. So when I found out he was attending Galaxic in Columbus, I knew I had to meet him. As I waited in line, I couldn't help but tear up every time I looked at him. The people around me were kind and understanding, but I was nervous about what would happen when it was my turn. When I finally met Matthew, he surprised me by complimenting my chosen name, Kurt, and asked why I was crying so hard. I explained that he was very important to me, and he immediately tried to make me laugh and smile with jokes and kind words. He even walked me away from the crowd, showing genuine concern for my well-being. We had a photo op later that day, and I was amazed when he remembered my name and gave me an extra hug despite the rush. What struck me most was his kindness and humility, especially after reading about Quentin Tarantino's negative comments about him. I wanted to share this story to show that Matthew Lillard is not only an incredible actor, but also a wonderful person. My encounter with him was truly one of the happiest moments of my life, and I feel grateful to have met someone who made such a positive impact on me. I left the convention feeling inspired and uplifted, with a renewed appreciation for Matthew's work and a heart full of joy.
I'm off the clock. I was clocked out for the day, but that didn't stop a customer from trying to get my help. My mom had come to pick me up from work, and we were shopping near the registers when I noticed the light from my old register was still on. I walked over and turned it off, explaining to a man who had his items on the belt that the lane was closed. But instead of leaving, he started telling me about his Halloween lights that didn't work, no matter which outlet he plugged them into. I tried to brush him off, explaining that I was off the clock and couldn't help him, but he just kept talking. It was Christmas time, and I was trying to be nice, so I pointed him in the direction of our Christmas lights when he asked if we sold them. But then he started rambling about how his Halloween lights were a different count than our Christmas lights. I explained again that I was off the clock and that my manager could help him better, but he just wouldn't take no for an answer. He even hunted me down to tell me that he had recounted his Halloween lights, and they were actually a 20 count, just like our Christmas lights. I just nodded and walked away, trying to end the conversation. It was a strange encounter, but I was just glad to be off the clock and done with my shift. The customer finally left me alone, and I was able to go home with my mom, leaving the chaos of the store behind. I was relieved to be done with the day, and ready to move on from the weird conversation.
Forcing my boss to arrive at 7 a.m. I just started a new job and wanted to make a good impression by arriving early, so I began coming in between 800 and 8:15. However, I soon noticed my boss was already there, apparently an early bird as well. I decided to arrive earlier, at 7:30, but again, he was already at his desk. I was determined to beat him, so I started arriving at 700, but he was still there before me. It wasn't until I asked him what time he usually arrived that the truth came out. He confessed that the director demands all managers to arrive before the first staff member and leave after the last, so my early arrivals were forcing him to wake up 1.5 hours earlier, only to work a long day until 5:30 p.m. I had unknowingly been disrupting his schedule, making him get out of bed at the crack of dawn, all because I wanted to make a good impression. My actions had an unexpected consequence, and now I feel a bit guilty for making my boss's life more difficult. I've learned that sometimes, trying to do the right thing can have unintended effects, and it's essential to consider the impact of our actions on those around us. As it stands, I'll have to find a new way to make a good impression, one that doesn't involve forcing my boss to sacrifice his sleep.
Mom asked me to pay for Christmas stay. I traveled across the world to visit my mom and stepdad for Christmas, at my stepdad's invitation. However, things took a turn when my mom gave me a cold shoulder upon arrival. This wasn't entirely unexpected, as she'd been withdrawing from me for the past year. I'd been preoccupied with surviving a war and couldn't deal with her distant behavior. Despite the challenges, I invested time and energy into this trip, spending $2,000 on flight tickets and enduring a 20-hour journey. Upon arrival, my mom began telling me I'm too much of a taker and not enough of a giver, which hurt considering she raised me. I asked her what she wanted from me, and she eventually requested that I pay for my Christmas stay, demanding $200 per day, twice the local hotel price. As an adult child, I understand I may be obligated to contribute, but it hurts to see my mom being so transactional. This experience has made me realize she might be toxic. I've been independent since 19, working part-time jobs since 14, and paying for my own university education. I had a fantasy that my mom loved me, but coming home has shattered that illusion. I'm now forced to reevaluate our relationship and consider the fact that her behavior is not just distant, but also hurtful. I'm still trying to process this experience and figure out what it means for our relationship going forward. The trip has been a wake-up call, and I'm not sure how to move forward from here, but I know I need to take care of myself and prioritize my own well-being.
My dad's insecurity issue. My dad has always been a complicated figure in my life, and our relationship has been a constant struggle. He can't seem to be proud of me, or give me a genuine compliment. Instead, he needs me to act like his parent and tell him how proud I am of him, which is exhausting. I've always felt like I'm not good enough for him, no matter how hard I work or what I achieve. As a kid, my crayon drawings were never good enough. As a teenager, my punk band wasn't good enough. Even in college, when I moved out, I felt like I wasn't good enough. Now, in my 30s, I'm trying to maintain a relationship with him, but it's tough. Recently, something silly brought this issue to the surface. I've been making pickles as a hobby for about 10 years, but my dad got into it a few years ago. With his retirement, land, and house with a cellar, he has all the time, money, and space to be better at it than me. I'm happy for him, really, I am. I'm proud of him for finding a hobby that isn't binge drinking. But what really gets me is that he can't just be proud of me and my accomplishments. He needs constant validation and praise, which is draining. I wish he could see that I'm doing my best and be proud of me for who I am. I've tried to be supportive and encouraging, but it's hard when I feel like I'm not good enough for him. I've come to realize that his behavior is a reflection of his own insecurities, and I'm trying to be more understanding. However, it's still frustrating to deal with, and I wish we could have a more positive and supportive relationship. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I'm hoping that someday he'll be able to see me for who I am and be proud of me without needing constant validation.
Forced to pay rent to my parents. I just graduated college and picked up a job to stay busy while I waited for a solid offer. But after graduation, my parents suddenly stopped helping me and started demanding rent, even though I'm still living at home. They claim I owe them because they raised me, so now I'm paying for my own food, basics, and handing over a big chunk of my paycheck. I'm angry and stuck, trying to save to move out, but my cash keeps getting pulled away. I've been cutting back on everything, using online promos to lower prices on essentials like toothpaste and laundry detergent. I've even resorted to quietly using my parents' stuff when they're not looking because I'm that broke. It's messed up and I hate admitting it. I feel like I'm being treated like an ATM. I'm trying to set boundaries without blowing everything up, but it's tough. I'm barely scraping by, and I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. I'm trying to save for my own place, but it's hard when my parents are taking most of my income. I'm starting to feel like I'll never be able to move out and start my own life. I'm hoping to find a better job soon, but until then, I'm stuck in this situation. I'm just trying to survive and make it through each month without going further into debt. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I know I need to make a change soon. I'm just not sure how to do it without hurting my relationship with my parents.